And welcome again to another edition of the Right Has Left podcast. I am your host, Roy Garton, where we talk all things Trumpism, the Trump White House, the Republicans, and yes, we do talk about the Democrats as well. But we seem to have more fun talking about Donald Trump and his administration. So having said that, let's go ahead and kind of like get right into things here. First and foremost, we need to probably start off with what's going on with the Iran war, because that's kind of getting, in some ways, in a dark way, kind of funny. So anyway, Tehran said Thursday that the Strait of Hormuz is under Iran's control and management after President Trump said that the U.S. has total control over the waterway. In fact, he says, I think we'll keep it. He actually kind of wants to make it a U.S. territory, which is delusional, to say the least. And he wants to make the strait as a U.S. possession, because then he thinks he can control it 100%. But obviously, Iran came back with, Mr. President, I don't think so. And Iran has appeared to demand compensation for an oil spill, too, in the Strait of Hormuz that has washed up on Qasem Island. And that came about because of a couple of ships that were hit, and therefore they had a little bit of an oil spill. And the foreign bulk carrier appeared to be the source of that slick last month's elaborate ruse that saw President Trump secretly move from Air Force One to another plane by way of a catering truck. Also took place in some other news, and that took place within a day of U.S. and Turkish intelligence picking up on an Iranian plot to fire a missile at the presidential jet. Now, that particular piece of news has kind of, how can I put it? It was verified, but not 100% verified on that piece of intelligence. In other words, it could have maybe have been planted and also perhaps executed. And on the other hand, it wasn't 100% verified. So that is basically where we're at with that. So with Iran right now, not a hell of a lot's going on other than Trump's weird comment that he wants to make it a U.S. possession and therefore control the strait. And he got a lot of raised eyebrows with that particular comment, like, what the hell are you talking about? But, of course, then again, that's Donald Trump. And other news with our illustrious president, and this is kind of creepy, but President Donald Trump used a law and order rally with New York police officers to repeatedly talk about his thirst over the young, beautiful girls he sees in the White House. In a very bizarre and somewhat creepy rant, the 80-year-old president suggested that young women were regularly approaching him to gush about the impact of his federal takeover of law enforcement in Washington, D.C. Now, if you have not heard this particular comment, watch this.
No, these young, beautiful girls, these young, beautiful girls in the White House, you know, they come in. Now, I'm not supposed to say beautiful, but what the hell? These young, these gorgeous, beautiful girls, they want to be safe, and they come, Mr. President, may I speak to you? Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I said, why are you thanking me? Because a year and a half ago, I was afraid to leave. I was afraid to open the door of my apartment. And now I walk to the White House every morning and I have absolutely no fear. Thank you, sir.
Now, what is kind of awkward about this whole comment is, if you notice the law enforcement officers in the background, they really didn't know how to react to those comments. Number one, young ladies just don't walk into the White House and go about their business, nor do they just go about their business and, even if they are in the White House, walk up to the President of the United States at random and say, gee, thanks for keeping us safe. You know, they got to go through the Secret Service and et cetera, et cetera. So, in other words, I can safely bet, as well as millions of other people's, what Donald Trump was talking about was another one of his lies upon lies upon lies. It is possible that, women can walk into and up the steps to the White House and go about their business if they're clerks, et cetera, and they've had their security clearance. I'm not doubting that, but just walking up to the president at random and say those things. He was supposed to talk about what he's done for crime and the economics of the United States and some of his plans. He didn't. He just rattled and rambled on for 30 minutes in those speech and said absolutely nothing except that creepy comment about beautiful young girls, and that was scary. And those law enforcement officers in the background, even if they're laughing at that joke, they should be ashamed of themselves. And but you notice a lot of them are just like deer in headlights. Look, what did he just say? Oh my God. So anyway, the United States Congress Joint Economic Committee, also in other news, issued a report Tuesday, just this past week, with the new calculations that show that while President Trump made at least $2.2 billion in income in 2025, American families lost $219 billion to rising costs last year under the president. Now, the president is supposed to put the American people first, not profit off of them, said Senator Maggie Hassan, a ranking member of the Joint Economic Committee. Yet, President Trump has prioritized his own financial gain while hardworking families have been left to shoulder the rising costs driven by Trump's tariffs and the war on Iran and other actions. As Americans struggle to afford groceries, pay their utility bills, and make ends meet, the president continues to reward himself and his billionaire backers. The committee found that the average American family lost about $1,625 in 2025 due to inflation under Trump. Now, that means that the last year, Trump's personally profited more than 1.3 million times the amount that the average family lost. Now, in 2026, rising costs under Trump have contributed to hit families. As of June, the average family has paid $3,500 plus in inflation costs under President Trump. Now, Trump's personal profits have come from under new ventures, such as the Trump meme coin, which has made him around $636 million, while nearly 1 million people who invested in the coin lost money. Billions of dollars, as a matter of fact. Now, Trump also profited from Trump and Republican Party events held on his properties and from significant transactions that Trump Enterprises conducted with foreign companies and foreign governments. So it just goes on and on. And this senator said she will continue to push the Trump administration to reverse course on his tariffs, illegal war with Iran, and other harmful actions that have driven up costs in all 50 states. Now, in late breaking news on this particular same story, Trump and his family just purchased a bank. And because it's a Bitcoin depository type of bank, nobody knows who's involved with it. That's right. The Trump family has just purchased a bank to dump money into. It is quite obvious that in President Trump's second term, his main goal is to make him and his family and his rich cronies as wealthy as quickly as possible during his term. And you can see as we go into the second term that the economics of this country, the rising food costs, the war in Iran has just completely catapulted the United States into disarray. The jobs numbers aren't looking that good. Inflation is up. People have less to buy with their paychecks, and yet Trump continues to make billions and billions of dollars. He's doing a lot of bizarre and sneaky projects like the wall in Texas that he's building. He's now going into our national parks, completely destroying them to do whatever he wants. I'm sure you're going to see a Trump hotel in some national park probably here pretty soon. I seriously, that's how bad it's getting. He has no concern for the environment. And, we have national parks for one reason, that is to preserve the natural resources and the animals that live in it and the environment. But he doesn't care about that. He wants to buy Greenland and anything else he can get his hands on, anything that can show a profit. That's just plain sad. And now with this purchase of this bank on this story that I just read to you, which it is a tie-in, is absolutely crazy. And he has no checks and balances because we have a scared Senate that doesn't do anything except his own bidding. And we've got a House of Representatives that is doing his own bidding. That's why his approval ratings are at the lowest you've ever seen, and why there is going to be a shakeup in the midterms. Now, I don't know if the Democrats can claim the Senate, but the House of Representatives is almost a gimme, which will help restore some checks and balances. And you, the American people, should be very concerned about this. It's just so sad that there is starting to get some fractions now within the MAGA group itself. There are some people starting to raise questions because now things are starting to affect them, like Medicare, Medicaid, and the rising cost of gas. You're even seeing some of the MAGA people starting to scratch their heads like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen to me. It's just all of this white privilege, rich people that are starting, getting what they want, and to hell with everybody else. So keep your eye on that, though. Again, it's totally illegal if he is, in fact, investing in a bank or purchasing a bank. Of course, he can always say, well, I'm the president. I can't control what my family does. Yes, he can. He knows exactly what's going on with his family. He's probably directing it behind the scenes. So anyway, so during the secret plane swap, we need to get back into this news too, because this is interesting. Now, during the secret plane swap, which left Turkey after the July NATO summit, President Donald Trump was accompanied on the covert small military jet by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and his very close aide, Natalie Harp. Now, Natalie Harp, we need to take a look at that. This girl has also been getting into the news a lot more lately. So I'm going to leave it this slide here. But besides Natalie Harp, Dan Scavino and Walter Natua was also on that little small jet. Senior officials like Mark Rubio, though, however, Mark Rubio was left on the plane at Air Force One during this incident, as well as Scott Bissett remained on the decoy flight, who was also, and who was on the secret flight with Trump. Besides Pete Hegseth was, as I mentioned, Natalie Harp, his executive assistant. Now, let's go back to Natalie Harp, because some of you may not know who this young woman is. So she's very close to Trump, and some say in more ways than one. She's also by Trump's side late into the night and does a lot of Trump's Truth Social posts for him as he dictates what he wants said. You may have not known that. You think Trump is all night doing these Truth Social posts. Now, he does do some of them, but Natalie also posts a lot of them on his behalf, and she tells him what to say. So anyway, and then Deputy White House Chief of Staff Walt Natua was also involved with this, and Director of Oval Office Operations also stayed on the plane. And of course, as you're well aware of, the entire White House press corps stayed on Air Force One, and none of them was told what was going on. Very scary. What's bad about all this is going back to Mark Rubio. He is, he's in on the chain of command in case something would happen to the president and the vice president, and he was totally in the dark. He had no idea what the hell was going on, and he was not informed. Neither was Scott Bissett. So it's Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff, and other staff and press people were basically like, well, it happened. But I tell you what came into this news more than anything is this young lady, 28-year-old Karoline Leavitt. She quit. And she's the youngest person to ever hold the role, and she's going to leave the Trump administration at the end of the month and spend more time with her young family. So she says that's the public comment. She called it a very bittersweet decision, and President Trump said she would be stepping down, and of course, she still will have some involvement, from behind the scenes. And she just had her second child, and she said, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have had felt in my heart I cannot be the best mom to my two young children and give them all the attention that they deserve and the energy that is required. And between my children and my husband and the attention that the White House press office needs, I think I need to step down. And Trump hasn't outlined plans who's going to, replace her. But there are some candidates that are possibly going to be involved, and there has been some names tossed around. Scott Jennings, who is a CNN contributor, is one of them, and Fox News analyst Monica Crawley is a name that has been tossed around as to who is going to perhaps, take care of the White House press corps position. Now, this is what's interesting with this deal with Karoline Leavitt. Number one, she has had some concerns, and this has been verified by people who don't want to go on the record, but the press has talked to them. She has had some concerns about what was going on with Natalie Hart and how close she has become to the president. She is also very upset the fact of what happened with Air Force One and this plane swap, because she wasn't told about it. And she was left on the jet with the rest of the White House press corps, along with, as you're well aware of, a couple other people, including Mark Rubio. And I, honest to God, think that pissed her off. In fact, it scared her. And also, she has made comments that while she was on maternity leave trying to raise her newborn infant, Trump kept calling her at home, not once, not twice, but she said well over 100 times about stuff, because the guy can't figure anything out on his own. And he also still wanted total control of the press. That's not to say that Karoline Leavitt didn't do her job. Many people, pundits, have said that she has done her job extremely well. In fact, probably too well, to the point that it created a lot of friction with the White House press corps. And she was a marching soldier for Donald Trump. She had mainstream media put in the back and conservative media put up front who could ask questions, and those that Trump didn't like, she made sure that they were well in the back, such as CNN, NBC, et cetera. So, but, there's even a point where a young lady like Karoline Leavitt's just got to say, God, enough is enough, So I think that's a lot of it there. Whether Trump will even get any of these people replaced before the midterms is still to be decided. But it's interesting that, she was to see, it's actually an eyebrow raiser that Karoline Leavitt would leave this early in the administration. But, there's even a breaking point for her, and she's had some concerns. So moving on to other news, the board of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts voted on Thursday to inscribe President Trump's name on the building beneath the main signage, according to two people with direct knowledge of the proceedings, aggressively testing a federal judge's order that no signage of Trump should be put on the building, because the building was done and approved by Congress, and it is a ever long-living tribute to President John F. Kennedy and not a long-living tribute to President Donald Trump. But according to the resolution approved by the Trump Allied Board, the inscription underneath the institution's name would read, "Restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump." The board's decision, which directs officials to act by all legal means, came shortly after it voted to move forward with President Trump's plan to shutter the building for renovations. And that's exactly what is going on, and why you still see some of those things up there with coverings of the name. And the president's name was added to the building last year, but the judge ordered the letters taken down, finding that only Congress had the authority to change the institution's name. The Senate did remove Mr. Trump's name in June, but it is appealing the ruling. The move appeared to attempt to find a creative workaround to a provision in the federal law governing the Kennedy Center that says no additional memorials or plaques in the nature of memorials shall be designated or installed in the public areas. So there you go. It's just one damn thing after another. This is a Trump reported board, as I just told you. And this is, again, where Donald Trump thumbs his nose even at the Supreme Court if they don't rule in his favor. He will find workarounds. Donald Trump hates to be defeated. He refuses to be defeated. He refuses to abide by the Constitution of the United States. He doesn't give a shit about anything except himself and what he wants. And as he goes on, I am the king, I am the ruler, I have full executive authority. Congress is just there to do my bidding. That's the only reason they're there. They don't, I am the ruler of these United States and anything else in the world. And if I want it, I'm going to take it. If I want something done in honor of my name, I'm going to do it. He's just like the North Korean dude, the little guy up there. I hate to say that, but this is what it's becoming. Every day it just raises my eyebrows what this guy does. It is becoming absolutely scary, for lack of better words. So, yeah. So, in other news, military families and Congress members are sounding the alarm about an intensifying mental health crisis aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. As its 5,000 sailors and Marines endure a record-breaking deployment at sea tied to the war with Iran, two leading specialist military papers, the Navy Times and the Stars and Stripes, are reporting that there have been multiple attempts by sailors to jump overboard as poor conditions and mental stresses on the Lincoln reached the breaking point. Now, the crew is in its 9th month at sea, ladies and gentlemen, 9 months. And it has spent 250 days consecutively without making land, a record for an aircraft carrier in modern times. Worried families have vented their anxieties about loved ones on board the Lincoln at an emotional town hall meeting with Navy leaders in the San Diego area last Thursday. Stars and Stripes reported on this. Now, one spouse among the 200 or so family members said that her husband had texted her that day saying he hopes he doesn't wake up tomorrow. People walked through a destroyed area also of parts and of the cruiser as well. But here, Trump says he denies that there's U.S. low feelings on that ship. And he also says that, perhaps those Navy people need to stay out there longer. Watch this.
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly.
Deployment's gone on too long.
No. Not nearly long enough.
Now, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, he also said that the conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier have been completely misrepresented, just like you heard from Trump. Following reports that sailors struggling with low morale during a grueling deployment have attempted to jump overboard. As you're well aware of, as you just seen, Trump says everything's fine there. In fact, maybe they should stay out there longer. And Hegseth, who was speaking to Newsmax, he did not directly address reports of supply shortages, water contaminations, and deteriorating mental health on the Abraham Lincoln. Now, as you're all aware of, they are sending out the George Washington, which is over in the near Japan, to relieve this ship, the Abraham Lincoln. But it's going to take about a month to get there. So, they finally are bending and sending some relief, but they wouldn't have never even done that unless the fact of the matter is the press had picked up on this. So it's just a sad situation all the way around about this thing. And hopefully, our sailors will get some relief. Their food is in terrible disarray, shortages, as you saw in some of those clips. And my prayers go out to those sailors. And there's just no reason whatsoever that ship should have to stay out there that long. It's a crying shame. It really, really is. Now let's kind of take a look at my top news story. This story here, it hasn't had a lot of press. And I'm going to talk about Nexstar, Sinclair, and Scripps, who are three of the largest media conglomerates here in the United States. And Nexstar is laying off people. Sinclair is laying off people. In fact, Sinclair is trying to buy Scripps. And first, I'm going to give you the pros. I understand that, the days of news reporting back in the days of analog is on its way out. I understand that the ad revenue to support, morning news broadcasts as well as evening news broadcasts and the production people behind them and the photojournalists behind those. I understand that, because of low advertising revenue, something has to give. But these three conglomerates are basically bowing down to Trump's FCC and are changing the way that we are seeing news delivered in our homes each and every night. Not only are they cutting back on any kind of what we might call negative news on the Trump administration, because the FCC is getting tight with these people and telling them either you change the way you do your news or we will not approve your mergers. And in this day and age, we are seeing mergers happen each and every day among our mass media, including movie studios, including the conglomerates that own our networks, such as Comcast that owns NBC, such as Paramount and Skydance that owns CBS. And and Disney owns ABC. So you see this merger, and then these three conglomerates own all the affiliates that belong to those networks. And this is what is happening because people in mid-markets and small markets are seeing their people that they have watched each and every day deliver the news being fired. Now, and I'm going to give just this as an example, like in the Tulsa market, KTUL lost its entire news organization with the exception of a weather girl and moved all of the news gathering for that into Oklahoma City. They left that weather girl and I think one or two photojournalists who have to edit and do their own news. That's it. I worked for that station back in the mid-90s myself. My background is in journalism. Another thing that has happened is the NBC affiliate there in Tulsa just this past week got their word that there are about, I think about 80 people there are going to getting fired, including their morning anchor. She's been there forever. And so she's out of a job. Colorado Springs, Colorado. Their news organization people there have been fired and let go. The only people who have been safe so far are those in large markets such as Denver, such as Nashville, Tennessee, such as Oklahoma City. So far, their jobs are intact. But this is what's bad. What future and precedence does this set for people who have got journalism degrees and are now just in college going out into the market? And they're saying, I want to be a news broadcaster. I want to be a photojournalist. I want to be just a journalist. Photojournalist is, of course, is the one that shoots all the video. And sometimes they actually do the stories themselves. But in small markets, the journalist is also their video photographer. They set the camera up on the tripod. They have to get in front of it, and they do all their own stuff. They do their own editing. But, the bottom line is, where are these people supposed to go for jobs if they know there is no job security? I got a degree in journalism. I want to be in television. What the hell am I supposed to do? Do they have to do create podcasts like I do? Or do they have to, develop their own streaming platform and maybe hope to get some viewers? That doesn't give them a damn paycheck. So, there's very few places they can go unless they want to do news in extremely small stations where they might make maybe $1,200 a month, and it might be a part-time job even at that. They just can't walk out of college and go right on the network level. So you got to earn your stripes, and now there's less and less stations that are going to give them the opportunity to earn those stripes because they've gone to digital and AI. So that's to me is a damn crying shame that we have come down to that level. For those of you who are in journalism or breaking out into journalism, I wish you the best of luck. You know, my day when I got my college degree, I started out in small stations. I never had really the dream of working at a network level, although I did do some, I had the honor of traveling with the White House Press Corps a couple of times for news. And, you know, as far as I got into the station's larger markets, Oklahoma was it. So, but I was happy. I was okay with that. I, you know, divested and went into doing other things. I started my own media company, and I went into acting as well. So I'm still kind of stayed in my degree area, but my heart goes out to the young people who are trying to go into journalism, and there's not going to be much opportunity for them when you've got these big, huge conglomerates who care nothing about except their bottom line and their profits, and you know, cutting down the news departments, you know, because there's nothing left for them. As I wrap up this particular edition of The Right Has Left, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Mitch McConnell. And what's going on with him is right about where we were, you know, a month or so ago. Nothing. We have heard absolutely nothing about what's going on with this guy. He's supposed to be home in recuperation, and that's all their people are saying. We see people going in and out of his house, but other than that, we don't know if the guy is an invalid, if he's alive and well. He has not made any public statements. He has not made any videos. He has done absolutely nothing. So, Mitch, we hope that you're doing well. Well, that's all we can say. So there's your news for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of stuff going on with Trump, as always. And some big shakeups in the White House with Karoline Leavitt leaving. And we'll have to see if we're going to get a new White House press secretary between now and the midterms, or if he's not going to replace her at all. We don't know. Anyway, until then, you take care and you try to have a good week. Until next time, this is Roy Garden.